You're fast asleep, drooling on the pillow. The door is locked, the lights are off, and the AC is humming steadily. When a strange noise goes off at 3 in the morning, you barely register it. You tell yourself it's just the cat messing around or water moving through an old pipe, and you drift right back into deep sleep. Now try rewinding the clock 50,000 years. Same body, but this time you're curled up on cold, bare ground, wrapped in an animal hide beside a dying fire. No locked door, no walls. Around you, bears, wolves, leopards, and African lions far bigger than the ones alive today. Even the hyenas back then weighed about as much as a grown adult. Those predators know exactly where you are. They can smell you from a mile away and see straight through the dark, a few steps across the dying embers, and any one of them could end everything before you'd even open your eyes. And yet, for 50,000 years straight, humans have kept waking up every morning. They've kept surviving almost every single time. The question is obvious. Why? To find the answer, an answer that's a little hard to accept, you have to look at what your ancestors actually did to them. Your survival didn't come from luck or from nature's mercy. The truth is older, deeper, and honestly a bit more unsettling than that. Once you understand why predators don't dare attack, you'll see the price your ancestors paid to set up this arrangement. And you might start wondering how much longer that protection is going to last. There's a fascinating study that took place in the Santa Cruz Mountains, California, in 2019, run by ecologists Justin Sarasi and Christopher Wilmers. They hid 25 speakers across roughly a square kilometer of forest, playing different sounds. Tree frogs as a control, and ordinary human voices having a conversation. The result? The moment mountain lions heard a human voice, they immediately avoided the area around the speaker, moving slower and far more cautiously. In 2023, ecologist Liana Zanette, Western University, Canada, repeated the experiment in South Africa, in Kruger National Park, expanding it to 19 mammal species. And this time comparing human voices directly against lion roars, still considered the scariest sound on the savanna. The result? 95% of species showed a stronger fear response to human voices than to roaring lions, twice as likely to flee, and up to 40% faster to abandon a waterhole. Even elephants, which have virtually no natural predator besides humans, charged straight at the speaker playing lion sounds, but turned and ran the moment it played a human voice. In the wild, thirst is more bearable than the sound of something called human. Here's the paradox. A single hyena could take down anyone watching this in 30 seconds. The average human runs slower than a lion, is weaker than a leopard, has a worse sense of smell than a dog, and can't even bite through a bag of chips with wet hands. So where does all this fear come from? The real reason isn't in you. It's buried in what your ancestors did. To carve this fear into the minds of predators, they carried out something brutal enough to be hard to believe. In 2015, ecologist Chris Darrimont and his colleagues at the University of Victoria ran a groundbreaking study, published in the journal Science, to get to the bottom of it. He measured human hunting behavior against wolves, lions, leopards, eagles, every predator with a name in the natural world. And the results were shocking. While every other predator follows the optimal strategy of targeting the weakest individuals, the young, the old, the sick, to minimize risk and conserve energy. Our ancestors did the exact opposite. We targeted animals in their physical prime, the dominant males, the females in peak reproductive age. That behavior caused an unprecedented kind of damage to ecosystems. If a lion kills an old deer, the herd's gene pool barely notices. But when humans take down a healthy, dominant buck, we wipe out the best genes available and cripple that lineage's ability to keep going. Darrimont calls humans a super predator, a category that doesn't exist for any other species in nature. But hold on, studies, that raises another tricky question. How can a predator sense danger when you're still a kilometer away, nowhere near its eyes or ears? Where does the "there's a human nearby" run signal actually come from? The truth is, you're constantly broadcasting a signal you have no way of switching off. Beyond your shape, predators also register a distinct scent. One modern humans almost never think about: the smell of smoke. At Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, the oldest archaeological evidence shows our ancestors mastered fire about 1 million years ago. As far back as Homo erectus, our ancestors gathered around fire inside the very caves where, millions of years later, researchers are still finding fossilized ash. Across that entire span, burning wood triggered a specific chemical reaction. It released phenols. These are pungent, highly volatile molecules. Human smell is limited, but a large predator's nose is thousands of times more sensitive. To them, a fire lit at dusk is basically a Times Square-sized billboard hanging over wherever you are. Worse, phenol clings. It lingers on your skin, your hair, the hide you're wearing, long after you've left the fire behind. Even when the embers are cold, your body is still unknowingly giving off that signal. You have no idea. But you're always carrying an identifying mark of an ancient danger, like an invisible sign stuck to you. Here's the strange part, though. Even after they've smelled you, heard you, even seen you, they still can't quite figure out what you are. A lion's brain isn't built for multitasking, it's specialized for recognizing prey. Its nervous system runs on a search image, a filter that sorts the world into exactly 2 categories: food and don't care. The modern African lion's food list has around 15 main entries: antelope, zebra, buffalo, warthog, young giraffe. What do they all have in common? 4 legs, hooves, heads down, grazing, moving close to the ground. You have none of that. You walk on 2 legs, a form of movement that barely exists anywhere in a lion's evolutionary prey data. To a lion, you are, quite simply, a strange creature. But here's the key part. To many predators, bears, tigers, gorillas, standing upright on 2 legs is itself a threat display. It sends the message, I'm ready to attack. When you walk through the forest the way humans naturally do, you're unintentionally speaking a very aggressive body language. Lions don't have Google. All they have is an instinctive filter honed over millions of years, and that filter completely breaks down trying to categorize whatever you are. From 50 meters away in the bush, a hungry lion sees a strange shape, giving off an ancient warning scent, standing tall as if issuing a challenge, possibly holding something that could be a weapon. It's left choosing between hunting an antelope, familiar, safe prey, scavenging a carcass, low-risk energy, or engaging with that walking question mark. In the logic of survival, the unknown is always the most expensive option. Lions don't understand economics, but they're remarkably good at pricing risk. Still, let's play it out. Suppose a lion is reckless enough, young enough, and hungry enough to throw caution to the wind. What happens then? The answer is, the lion usually loses. Not always, of course, but often enough that most of them learn. Attacking a human is a bad bet. Craig Packer, who spent over 30 years studying lions in the Serengeti and founded the world's first lion research center, once pointed out something modern humans tend to forget. The wild has no antibiotics, no bandages. There's basically no such thing as a minor injury. A deep bite, a limping leg, can trigger a domino effect. More missed hunts, less food, weaker body, even more missed hunts. Even lions hunting in a pride, which have been reported to succeed roughly 30% of the time, compared with around 17–19% for a lion hunting alone in some Serengeti field data, still need an intact body to hold on to that edge. A scrape you'd forget about in a few days could, for a lion, be the start of a death sentence with no fixed date. This is where optimal foraging theory shows its power. A lion is constantly running an unconscious cost-benefit calculation, energy spent and injury risk, weighed against calories gained. Hunting an antelope, that math checks out. You either catch it or you don't, and injuries are rare either way. But going up against a human is terrible economics. You carry expensive traits predators have to respect. long legs built for endurance beyond most animals your size, hands that can grip a stick or a rock, an upright posture that spots a lion from far away, a scream that carries for kilometers. Long before you're bitten, the rest of your group could already be there with 20 spears. Even if the lion wins the fight, the odds of it walking away with a serious stab wound or gash are high enough to wreck its entire energy budget. The truth is, we could lose a fight to an angry house cat, but lions still avoid you, not because you're strong, but because the price of finding out is too high. Still, those advantages only work while you're awake. If you're alone and deeply asleep in the middle of the forest, that changes everything. Or does it? Before we go on, if you found yourself nodding along a few times already, hitting like right now will help this video reach more people who are just as curious as you are, because what's coming next is where things really start to click. This is where anthropologists hit a fairly big moment. Across the entire span of human evolution, humans have essentially never slept alone. In 2017, David Sampson, then a postdoctoral researcher at Duke University, fitted activity trackers on 33 Hadza people, one of the last hunter-gatherer groups left in Tanzania. He tracked over 220 hours of nighttime sleep across 20 nights, looking for one specific moment when the entire group was in deep sleep at the same time. Out of 220 hours, the whole group was asleep together for only 18 minutes. Read that again. 220 hours, 18 minutes. The rest of the time, 99.8% of it, at least one person was awake or in very light sleep. Not standing guard on some assigned rotation. They were just poking the fire, coughing, going to relieve themselves, soothing a crying baby, lying awake with their thoughts at 4 a.m. Sampson calls this the chronotype sentinel hypothesis. And it happens automatically for a simple reason. A group spanning multiple ages has different internal clocks. Grandma wakes up at 4 to pee. The 16-year-old isn't tired until 1 a.m. The 2-year-old wakes up crying for milk at 3. Middle-aged adults sleep soundly from 10 to 5. Put it all together, and you get full 24-hour coverage without anyone ever scheduling a shift. Your grandmother waking up at 4 a.m. to make tea isn't just old age or insomnia. It's a 100,000-year-old survival algorithm still running on outdated hardware. She doesn't know she's on watch. The tribe evaporated generations ago, but her body is still pulling the night shift for people who no longer exist. You exist today because you're descended from the groups where this mechanism worked. The groups where the whole band slept soundly through the night. All at once, they didn't leave descendants around to tell the story. But that's not the last piece. Because even with someone keeping watch, you, while asleep, aren't actually fully asleep either. And this part is genuinely strange. In 2016, Yuka Sasaki at Brown University ran a study that will completely change how you think about sleep. She and her team scanned the brains of 35 participants on their first night sleeping in an unfamiliar location. The goal was to find the brainwave signature of deep, slow-wave sleep. They found it, but only strongly present in the right hemisphere. Meanwhile, the left hemisphere stayed partially alert, highly vigilant, reacting to unusual sounds far faster than the other side. In one experiment, participants asked to tap a finger. Whenever they heard a sound during sleep, responded noticeably faster on the first night than on the second. The effect faded and was nearly gone by the second night. Sasaki calls this the first night effect, a scaled-down half-brainwatch system. Essentially the same trick dolphins and migratory birds use, sleeping with half their brain at a time to stay alert across thousands of kilometers of flight. This is the real reason you sleep so badly on the first night in an Airbnb. It's not the unfamiliar pillow, the AC noise, or the reviews you read beforehand. It's that half of your brain is actively assessing the space and issuing a verdict. Environment not yet confirmed safe, full rest not authorized. You have zero say in that decision. Even though the lifestyle has changed completely, the biological hardware from your ancestors is still intact and those background processes are still running, even in the most familiar room you own. So if you happen to wake up at 3 in the morning, don't blame yourself. Part of you has been keeping this vigil for 1,000,000 years. It doesn't care about the modern locks you've installed. It's just running on an ancient instinct that says, the dark always hides something worth waking up for. Everything above is true, but it's not the complete picture. It would be careless and irresponsible for this to end with the message that every predator has learned to fear humans and that we're completely safe. In reality, there are exceptions that evolution's warning never reached. Take polar bears. They live in places where our ancestors never established populations large enough or stayed present long enough to teach that fear. There's no 1,000-year history of hunting parties crossing the ice, killing bears that got too close, building the kind of inherited caution that gets passed down. In places like Svalbard or Nunavut, reports show that many attacks aren't accidental encounters or self-defense. They're genuine hunts. To a starving polar bear, you're not a formidable creature. You're just an upright seal that moves slowly and goes down easily. Saltwater crocodiles are a different story entirely. When humans encroach on their habitat or feed them, crocodiles learn to associate people with food rather than danger. Their rule is dead simple. Anything that moves and fits in the mouth is food. Wildlife managers across northern Australia will tell you this species has never learned to avoid humans the way mammals do. They simply eat whatever they can catch. Finally, there's the classic case at Tsavo in 1898. 2 male lions in Kenya killed at least 28 railway workers over 9 months, the officially documented number even though the legend later got inflated well beyond that. The usual explanation is that they were injured, sick, or desperate enough to become the exception. But the real lesson here isn't how rare the event was, it's the warning underneath it. When the normal safeguards collapse, whether from habitat destruction, injury, or starvation, the old rules get erased. The survival math changes, inherited fear gets overridden, and humans become the target. So the rule about fear is real, but the deadly exceptions exist right alongside it. Sleeping outdoors may be safer than you'd assume, but it's certainly not the absolute safety you might be hoping for. But there's one thing this hasn't touched on yet, and it might be the part that makes you look back at everything you just read a little differently. That same Santa Cruz study mentioned at the start also uncovered a stranger domino effect, one that goes beyond the fear of mountain lions alone. When mountain lions and other carnivores hear human voices, the fear ripples down. Skunks and opossums, which also fear humans, reduce their overall activity and foraging by 40% and 66%, respectively. And with those mid-level predators pulling back, the rodents they normally keep in check suddenly get more room to operate. Deer mice increase the area they use by 45%, potentially affecting the plants and seeds those rodents consume. Your fear doesn't stop at a single mountain lion. It cascades downward, layer after layer, like an invisible signal broadcast by exactly one species, running the length of a food chain, most of which has never seen your face, and never will. Biologically, you have almost nothing going for you. No claws, no night vision, no sharp enough sense of smell to detect danger. You have no exceptional speed, no real climbing ability. And honestly, you'd struggle to win a straight fight against anything bigger than a medium-sized dog. And yet, you can still sleep soundly. Your sleep tonight isn't a gift from nature's kindness. It's the payoff of 10,000 generations before you. Fire by fire, hunt by hunt, encounter by encounter, your ancestors built a brutal order. Any animal that dared treat humans as prey got wiped out of the gene pool. Only the ones that learned to fear and avoid us lived long enough to pass their genes forward. That's the inheritance. A primal fear of humans, encoded deep into the nervous systems of predators. A guarantee bought with the blood of countless generations of predators, instead of yours. But that protection is fading. As humans move further away from hunting and predator populations recover without anyone left to teach them the old lesson that inherited fear is running out, generation by generation, with no one left to pass it on. In places where the lesson about human danger has been forgotten, the survival clock is quietly counting down its final seconds, silently, with no warning, exactly the way it was first set. So sleep well. The price for your peace was paid a long time ago, in the blood of those who are no longer here to collect the debt. If a camping night ever left you jolting awake for no reason you could name, tell us about it below. Your instincts might have been more right than you realize.